Well, good afternoon, everyone. I have my sister Dina here today, and I'm going to kind of like hand her the whole floor here in a second. And I'm having her on because she's also going to be sharing some of her dreams. And like I told y'all in the past, I created this channel to share our dreams and visions and our family for our children. And so Dina is like me. She has many dreams. We've actually had dreams the same night before, almost identical dreams. We may have to share one of those in a second video because she's probably going to have to take 2 or 3 videos to share all her dreams. But today I'm going to hand her the floor, and the first dream she's going to share is one that she had in 2005. We've talked about this for years and years, and I could probably almost tell it for her. And then she's going to tell a couple of presidential type dreams because we both have governmental type dreams. And then she might even share some of our family ones, but it might end up being in a second session. We'll see how long it takes to get this one. So anyway, Dina, my sister, take the floor.
Okay, so this first dream I had was in 2005, and I don't remember. I've tried to find my book on it this morning, and I'm gonna just have to keep digging through my stuff because I couldn't find it. So I'm gonna do this from memory. I have told it a lot of times, so I think I can remember most of it. I might miss some of the details, but I know it happened in 2005 because it happened before Hurricane Katrina, and it was several months before. It might have even been the beginning of that year, but I know it was in 2005 before Hurricane Katrina, before the storm. So,
and I just want to say one thing. This dream reminds you, or it reminds me a lot of the one that John Paul Jackson had and shared, I think around 2007-ish maybe, or 2008.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it was real similar to that because once he had his dream, we were like, Dina, that's like your dream. So anyway, go ahead, Dina.
So in my dream, me and my family and several of our family members, and my mom has there's 10 brothers and sisters in my mom's family. And so in my dream, there was different family members almost from each one of her brothers and sisters' households. It wasn't all of them, but I knew in my dream that it represented just our family and families kind of being in a place together, a place of security together. But the house that we were in was completely built of glass, which was strange, but we felt safe in there. But it was all glass, and anyone on the outside could look in and we could look out. So anyway, we're in this house, and all of a sudden I'm running around. I see this huge dark cloud coming. I look out and I see this huge dark cloud. I knew it was like a tornado or like a major storm. And I mean, it was so scary, so foreboding. It filled the whole sky. I mean, I could see it far off, and it was huge, and it was coming for us, and it was coming pretty fast. And I jumped up, and I was running. I think everybody was sleeping, or we were all resting. So I'm running around, and I'm waking up everyone, and I'm shaking them. I'm like, the storm of the century's coming. The storm of the century's coming. And I'm waking everyone up, and everyone's kind of waking up, and we're trying to figure out what's going on, and you can see the storm. And as the cloud gets closer, before it gets to the house, it's like spinning, and it spins and spins and spins, and it spins into like a UFO ship, which was so strange, but that's what it did. It turned. It's no longer a cloud. It kept spinning, and it changes, and it's like a UFO ship, and it keeps spinning, and out of the ship comes all of these men dressed in. They're dressed in black. They look like ninjas, and they're dressed in solid black.
Which was like ISIS back in the day.
Right. And so later when ISIS come and how they were dressed, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what those men look like in my dream. But they came up to our house, and they come all the way up, and they stopped at the door. And like I said, we could see them, but it was like they could not see us. Even though we were in this glass house, they could not see us, and we were protected. And then the dream kind of shifts. It's almost like,
well, they were kind of almost like looking in the window too.
They were like looking in to see if they could see anyone. But it was like
God hid us.
We were hidden, even though we were in a glass house. We were hidden, and we were protected, and nothing happened to us. And then the dream kind of shifts, and it's almost like another. It's almost like in my dream, I knew it was like a different time. Like there's a different time, and then another storm comes, but I don't really see a storm cloud, but I knew it was another event that was happening. And this time there's another group of soldiers that come up, and in my dream I knew they were Asian. They were wearing just the military clothes that they were wearing, and I kind of feel like that's the time that we're in now, because I felt in my dream that they were they were Chinese. And also the same thing, they come all the way up and they can see, they're looking in. But this time in my dream, the first time I didn't do anything, I was just looking out, and we were kind of afraid, but then nothing happened. But this time in my dream, I lift up my finger and I point at them, and I start speaking in tongues. And I start praying against whatever they're trying to do, which is kind of amazing, because that's what we've been doing this year.
A year.
It's like the church has kind of risen up, and we've been praying against the agenda of the enemy against our country.
Well, especially China, because of the coronavirus.
Because of all of that.
A lot of stuff that's happened because of China.
Exactly. So I was like praying against them, and this kind of the same as the other. It just, nothing materialized. They never seen us. They were never able to hurt us. And we were okay. And then the third part of the dream, it's kind of the same. It was like another shift. And so this is, I guess, a future thing that'll happen. I don't know. But there was another army that come up, and they were dressed in kind of a khaki colored uniform. I can't really remember what they looked like, but this time there was a man in our home with us. And he was dressed in the same type of uniform that they were. But I knew in my dream that he was there to protect us.
Like he was kind of incognito. Maybe he was infiltrated their army or something. He was there to protect us.
But he was kind of with us, even though he looked like he should be with them. But yet he was with us. In the house.
That's interesting.
And anyway, but then I woke up after that.
Wow. So what do you think that third army?
Like I said,
were they like a scary army that was outside the third army?
All I remember is they were kind of wearing a khaki colored uniform, and then that one man was in the house with us, and I just felt peace because he was with us. It was like I knew
he was like the Holy Spirit, you believe?
Right? That we were going to be fine because he was going to be in there with us this time. We weren't in there by ourselves. I knew after that dream, several months later is when we had Hurricane Katrina. And then that was, even in the newspaper, they called it the storm of the century.
Oh, that's right.
I was running around saying, the storm of the century is coming, the storm.
And it was a bad storm.
It was a bad storm. And really, after that storm, of course, I know 9/11, a lot of things shifted in our country. But that storm where we live, I was in the mortgage company. I was in the mortgage industry. And then a few years after that, everything in the mortgage industry kind of changed. My whole life kind of changed as far as what I did.
Especially about 2008. By the time 2008 got there, and everything started really shifting.
There was just a lot of changes that happened. So there was, I really believe God was just showing me kind of timelines of things that was going to happen in our country.
So something's coming that we don't really. So we know a third something is happening that's coming up, but we just don't really know.
We don't know when, because we're really still in the middle of the second one,
With
we're still
the Asian army,
there. But the piece about it is to know that we're going to come through it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because nothing happened to us. We were fine and we were protected. So all of this is going on.
That's
we know that we're going to be okay.
So she's got another dream that she's going to share. I'm going to have her share the one where you were in the White House with when Obama was president. Now she has dreams. It doesn't matter who the president is. She's like me. I've had dreams about, when Obama was president, we were constantly having dreams about Obama administration. When Trump was president, we were constantly having dreams about that. And still to this day, I'm still having dreams, and she is too. So share one from back then when Obama was president.
So this dream that I'm remembering was right before his second term. So this was, it would have been, in the time where the election, when the election process was going through and he was running for the second term. and I guess he was running against Romney at the time. But anyway, I had a dream that I was actually in the White House, and I have never been in the White House, but the pictures that I have seen of different things,
She actually was
I'm like,
translated to the White
oh my
House.
gosh, I was literally in the White House in my dream, because it was I can't really even describe it, but I know I was there because I've seen pictures that they've shown of just outside the Oval Office. I'm like, that's exactly what it looked like.
And for people
in the
that
hall.
don't understand that, you know, sometimes you'll have a dream, sometimes you'll have a vision that seems really real, but sometimes the Lord will literally translate you out of your body, and that's literally what Dina's had. And Dina's had multiple of those kind where she's translated out of her body, and that's what happened. She was literally in the Oval Office.
Right. So in my dream, I'm in the White House, and there's like, I can see the different like Secret Service men and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna see me, you know, but they don't see me.
Yeah,
and I
scary.
see this stairway, and so I go up this stairway, and I climb all the way to the top, and I'm on this hall, and this door opens, and this is when I realize I'm in front of the Oval Office, because this door opens, and these several men come out of this door. But the one man that comes out in my dream, it was like he looked like he was in the British Parliament, like maybe back in the 1800s, where they just the type of clothing he was wearing was.
But we did come from them, so
something you can imagine what they would wear, where they had the little pants that looked kind of puffy, and the jackets with the vest with the button. And it was like a pale blue, like a light baby blue. And he had his hair, he had the wig on that they would have with the curls. And he really came kind of primping out of the Oval Office. And it was almost like he was part of the presidency. You know, I didn't know if he was the president that had gotten elected, which I thought was strange. But somehow I knew he was part of the presidency. And it was just so odd. That was all of the dream that I saw. And I woke up and I thought, that is so odd. Why would I dream about this little, this man kind of being like prissy coming out of the Oval Office? But then after President Obama was reelected, then that's when he really began introducing the gay agenda,
gay marriages,
and all of that agenda. And I believe God was showing me that the next term, that agenda was going to be that it was coming out of
the forefront.
It was coming to the forefront, and it was going to be coming from the presidency, from the Oval Office.
Top down.
Yes, and I mean that's exactly what happened. That they had they lit up the White House that year in the rainbow colors.
I didn't remember that.
Or the next year, whatever year they did it, it was after the second term though.
Right.
And anyway, I believe that God was just showing me that, and I should have probably started praying against it. But I didn't know. I didn't really even understand what that meant.
Right.
Yeah, but looking back, I do now that God was just showing me that that agenda was fixing to be introduced, and it was going to come out.
Right. Very interesting.
It really was. And then this happened. This is a dream. I actually have this one written down. And this happened in 2012. This was in March of 2012. And so I was awakened in the night. And this was not a dream, but this was a vision that I had. And I saw this huge spider over my head. And it was a tarantula.
Ooh.
And it was literally the size of this table.
Oh gosh. Of her. It's about 4x4, this table in front of me.
It was so huge, and it was up behind me on my shoulder. It was just like dangling here. And I woke up and I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and it was like this big, and it had a red spot on the top of its head.
Oh, that might have been
or it could have been a black widow.
Black widow, yeah.
Right,
the black widow has that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it would have been a black widow because it had the red spot. I just knew. I thought of a tarantula because tarantulas are so big.
Yeah, that's a black widow.
It probably was because I forgot about that.
Oh, I've seen some. I've had dreams of the black widow, and those are scary.
So this thing was huge, and it was right behind me, and I literally saw it in a second. It was just like I seen it,
it's a spirit.
And then I woke up. I mean, I couldn't even go back to sleep for, I'm telling y'all, a long time. I had to turn my light on in my room. I had to play music. But anyway, I woke up and I prayed. Like I said, I listened to praise music. And so that morning, the next morning after I did finally go back to sleep, I was asking God about it, and I felt like He showed me that we were about to enter into the time of the giants.
Whoa.
And this was in 2013.
That's amazing.
And he was like, he reminded me about when the children of Israel went to Canaan, and about that, they had to defeat all of the giants,
the enemies we have to fight, which is what we're doing right now.
And exactly, and it was like he was showing me that we were about to enter in to the land of the giants, and he was showing me a spider that would be a giant spider like they would have.
Right.
It's it's the spirit of deception.
Jeez.
Spiders represent deception.
They also witchcraft, deception,
and
right?
All of that stuff.
Evil,
it's just pure evilness. Anyway,
well, literally, what she did was like God opened her spiritual eyes, and she literally saw a demonic entity.
Right.
I mean, it might have been outside her house, and she could have just seen through something.
And I don't even really know if it was even truly in my house.
That's what I'm saying. But your eyes were open to that in that dimension where it was
right where I seen that, and I was like, oh, it was. So
that's
scary.
The thing about sometimes when God does actually give you the ability to see things, is like sometimes they're not always the good things, occasionally things like that when you see them. And I had visions of bears, and you have a dream of a bear.
And this was around the same time. It might have been a few months before or after this, but it was another time that I also was. I just woke up and I turned to the side, and beside my bed was a huge bear. I mean, it was as tall as my room. Ugh. And it was just standing there, and it just looked so evil.
Right.
And anyway, I woke up, and then I couldn't go back to sleep for a while. But I just felt like that, we always think about Russia, and I even had shared this, and at that time there was really nothing going on. So this was like back in 12, 13. Nothing was really going on with Russia and America. But then we know about 4 years about 4 years later, what all happened. It was the whole 4 years of Russia.
Right, Russia. Yeah.
So anyway, God was just showing me at that time that something about Russia was going to be involved.
But it was like coming. An attack. It was an attack.
Yes.
Even though maybe they didn't really attack us, but it was like that spirit, that agenda, that evil agenda with Russia did come into our country, and it cost millions and millions of dollars.
So much stuff, and it all happened.
And so much conflict in our country. Also,
it really did. And then another vision I had. This wasn't a dream, and it was all kind of during this time. I woke up, and here's my bedroom, and then I have like a little dressing area that goes toward into my bathroom, and in the little dressing area, I saw these two warrior women. They were like, just like warrior, and they were both women, and they had these swords.
Wow.
Kind of like these Asian, you see these movies with these Asian warrior women fighting, and they're doing all of that stuff.
Back in the day, that kind of look.
Samurai type women, but they were women, that knows how to do all the tricks and all that stuff. I don't know what you call it, but they do that kind of fighting.
Wow, I've seen them.
And anyway, one of them I knew was on the good side, and one of them I knew was on evil.
Wow.
And they, in my dream, one started at one side of this area and the other started at the other, but it was like it was a long stretch. It was like clashing of the swords. And both of them took off running as fast as they could toward each other with their swords raised.
I got chills.
And they like crashed into each other, and they were fighting.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like this all happened within a couple of seconds.
Do you remember what they looked like?
Like Asian warrior women with their swords that know how to do all those flipping tricks.
Yeah.
And they know the karate and all of that stuff. That's what I mean. I didn't see them.
I just wonder if that represented the bride and the false bride.
I think so. It could have been like I don't necessarily see what their faces look like. I'm not saying they were even Asian,
right? But that's just what they dressed like.
Fighting women,
which is kind of like where the church has been this last 2 years. Like we have been, we have literally had the greatest battle between good and evil,
right?
Between the church and then the evil that is like the Jezebel spirit,
right? And both of them were like, they were both determined to win. I mean, they were giving everything. They did not kill. They were fighting to the death.
Yeah.
They were fighting to the death. One of them was not going to survive.
And you have to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the spiritual part of it, you have to, because you cannot let evil perpetrate.
Right.
You cannot let it, because it will infiltrate your children. It will infiltrate everything.
Right.
Because evil has no mercy.
No.
We're not talking about like just someone that's a mean person. We're talking about demonic evil.
Right.
You can never, you cannot, as a church, we cannot cow down to that.
No, we cannot.
That's powerful.
So I guess this one last dream maybe I'll share, and this has to do with kind of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, I remember this. Was that 2019?
This was in I think it was in 2019, or it could have been 2020.
That's what I was saying. January 2020.
It was 2020 because it was the year of the election.
It was January. I think it was in January
2020.
Because I think you had that dream, and I had another one really similar, literally this, like around the same week or something. I can't remember mine right this second, but this one's really powerful.
So this was in January of 2020, and I dreamed that I was on the side of a mountain, and I had this little boy with me. He looked to be about 4 years old, and he was blonde-headed. And he had a little bow and arrow with him. And we were just on the side. We were kind of high up, but we were on the side of a mountain. And we looked across, and we could see all the way across. Like, it was far off, but we could see all the way across this place. And there was another mountain over there. And in the side of the mountain, there was a train track, which you wouldn't have known it. You couldn't see it. But the only reason I knew there was a train track there is because there was a train that had come in. And in my dream, I knew that this train was coming in secretly. Like, it was sneaking into our country. I knew it was coming into our country. And it was full of these warriors. These ancient warriors that looked like warriors back from, maybe even back from the early, like, David and those time, or early, even the Viking type, way back in the early part.
The Viking type,
yeah. I mean, and these warriors, they had on just like little leathery, little fur type skirts, or clothes. What they wore, and they had like a strap on them, and with a bow and an arrow in their strap. And these men were like so muscular.
Beastie.
I mean, they were huge. And they looked mean and intense. And they were coming in secretly into our country. And the little boy that was with me, he had his little bow and arrow. And we could both see that they had bows and arrows as well. And he picked, without me realizing it, he picked up his bow and his arrow. And he pulled it back. And I realized it as soon as he let it go, but he pointed to the front of that train, and he could see the captain of that train. He could see the guy that was over, I'm not the captain of the train, the captain over all of these warriors. He could see him, and he took his little bow and arrow, and he pulled it back, and he shot it. And I know that train was moving, but it was like he knew that he could hit that leader. And so he shot that arrow, and as soon as he did, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what have you done? I was so scared.
They didn't know we were over here.
Yes.
Now they do.
And all of a sudden, this arrow, I could feel it flying through the air. It was like I was like right beside it in the dream. Is how it felt. And it went all the way across this long,
valley or something?
Yes, it was a long space between us and that other mountain. But it went all the way across. It was going so perfectly straight, and it was going fast. And when it went across, it barely missed the leader or the captain. It like whizzed like right past his head. He felt the wind of it. It might have even barely grazed his face. It was that's how close. If this little boy that was with me had come to literally taking this thing out. It just like whizzed past him. And as soon as it went past him, he turned his head and he looked in our direction, and he started doing this. He was motioning to all of his men on this train. And I knew in my dream that he was telling them, you need to go find out who has just realized that we're here, and you need to take them out. And all of these warriors started jumping off of this train, and they started running. They had no shoes on. I'm talking, these were like warriors from ancient days. And I grabbed this little boy's hand, and we took off running, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have got to go back and tell the group of people that we were with that these warriors are coming and we have got to be ready to fight. So I get back to the camp that I'm at, and my sister Susan is there, and there's a few other adults, but most of the people in this camp were children. They were like this little boy, and they were young, and they were immature.
Oh gosh!
And we were gonna have to train them
in like 5 minutes
against these warriors that were coming. And Susan, you were dancing. You were teaching them dances.
Oh, that's right. I remember you telling me
you
that.
were teaching them dances, and we were like, and I remember we were training them how to shoot their arrows. And anyway, but I was like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna fight? I mean, we have children. How are we gonna fight? But we had to. It was like in my dream, I knew it didn't matter. I could not focus on the fact that we were young and not ready. It was life or death. We had no choice anymore.
And you knew that was, and you really felt like 99.999% that was represented Trump after you
right. So when I woke up later, I felt like that the little boy represented Trump because he was about 4 years old, and I felt like it represented his first 4 years of presidency.
Right.
That he was young in politics and he didn't really know, but he had truly struck a chord with the enemy. He had exposed something
and
that
he
had
got
been
real
hidden.
close to taking it out.
He got really close at that point, but he had missed, and now they knew that they were exposed.
He awoken the evil.
And the church, I believe, was us and the young children, because that is really where the church was. And I think we've grown some, but after everything that happened in 2020 and even this year, we were at a young place, and we were not really ready to fight the enemy that had come into our country. We were not ready.
And we haven't stopped fighting.
But it was like I knew, just like in my dream, we had to fight. It's like you did not prepare, but we have God with us, and He was going to help us. But we had to, at that point, we had to learn to fight. And,
share that one dream before we get off, of the one where you said that there were like two different teams, and we were like the grace thing, and then there was another one that they were like warriors,
right?
Because this would kind of be a good way to end it out. That kind of follows up what she's already had, and then we'll do a second and probably 2 or 3 videos to get all her, because she has a lot of dreams like me.
So I had another dream, and I think this actually was the year before, and I know it was. This one was actually in 19. So I had this dream that I was I was at this place, and I was under a tent, and I had a water gun, and I was with my mom and different family members, and all of a sudden there was this group of warriors that came. It was like I was at a camp or something. Now this is where I live.
And weren't we with kids too again?
Yeah.
So we're always with kids.
And so
dreams.
These fighters came into our camp. But in my dream, I knew that we were both Christians. But I was in a group of Christians that we were just kind of not really aware of the war that was truly going on, and we were not fighting. I was under a little tent, and I had a water gun, and I was just so peaceful and happy. Everything was good. I was shaded. I was fine. And this group of warrior Christians came in, and they were like fighting. We were like almost having to fight against each other. And I remember I had my water gun, and I shot it, and I realized this is not going to hurt anyone. So there was a bus full of kids that was kind of over at the side. And so I get up and I go and I get those kids, and Mom is with me, and we're trying to get these kids to safety. And I knew that I was gonna have to make a choice. Was I gonna stay in the camp where everything was just hunky-dory, peaceful, but which really wasn't true, because there was a war going on that I had not realized. I had just kind of been in this place. Or was I going to join in this war? And I knew that I had to join in, that it was time that I had to become like a warrior. I could no longer be in this place I had been. So I was taking these kids with me, and I was trying to protect them. And the sad thing about the dream, there was other people in my camp that really did get hurt.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't like anyone wanted to hurt them. It was like because they could not make the choice to change. It was like they wanted to stay in the places.
They were going to die if they did.
They were going to die, and they didn't want to make the transition into that we are no longer in this time. It's like a new thing.
Right.
So in my dream, I knew. So I went to this building, and I was going there to meet with with this general that was over that warrior, and he was going to train and teach me about being a warrior.
Wow.
And so this was in 2019. So I go and I'm sitting in this place and I'm waiting to meet this general and to be taught about how to be a warrior.
I think I know who that guy represents.
Right. And then a few months later, I'm watching It's Supernatural. And I watched this man, his name is Kevin Zadai. And he was sharing about his experience about going to heaven. And it was really good, and about being in the secret place with God. And I watched several of his little videos of his testimony. And I went on to Facebook and I followed him. I'm like, oh, I like him. I'm going to have to listen to him some more. This was probably back in the mid part of the early summer.
I didn't know anything about it.
Either April, May. I mean, it was the earlier part of probably May or June of 2019. So that had been several months. Well, then in December of 2019.
This is a story. I have to share this story that goes with this.
So, Susan, go ahead and you share the second
so
part
it
of
was Christmas night. And I went home because I had like 3 full days of like one Christmas after the other because we have, different families and everything. And I think I went to bed at like probably 7 o'clock that night or maybe 8 o'clock or something. And I am sound asleep. And at 11 o'clock that night, I get a text from Dina and she's sending me a recipe. And I was like, I couldn't believe Dina would even be up at 11 and she sent me a recipe, which is very odd. She doesn't do that. Well, once I woke up, I could not go back to sleep for anything in the world. I could not go back to sleep. And so a lot of times if I can't go back to sleep, I'll just go listen to a minister. So that's what I did. I was scrolling on my phone and I saw this guy and it said something about, I am your heavenly tour guide. And he was sharing about, and I was like, heavenly tour guide, this guy must be some new age person, But y'all, I kept like going back and it kept drawing me in. I'm like, I want to hear this guy's story because it said something about a story. And I'm like, Lord Jesus, please protect me. I don't want to get into new age people, because you got to be really careful about who you watch, because there is a lot of new age people that like talks about angels and stuff. So you got to be very careful. So anyway, I started listening and I thought, oh my gosh, that was so good. And I listened to like 3 or 4 of the videos. And the next morning, I told my husband about it, and literally there was like 12 series in this little thing about him when he had his wisdom teeth cut out and he died on the table because of the anesthesia. And so literally the next day, which was the day after Christmas, my husband and I were just resting and we literally watched all 12 of those. And y'all, I just felt like that God had like led me to listen to this. And so I was telling Dina, I was like, Dina, you've got to listen to this guy. And she says, wow, that is so weird. She goes, I've heard of that guy. And I was like, Dina, I know you didn't, when you sent me that recipe, I was so shocked because Dina doesn't usually remember to send you something if you ask her like a recipe. Half the time she don't even text you back, So I knew this was such a supernatural thing. And so literally right after that, I was listening to him all the time. Bobby and I even went to one of his conferences, and then coronavirus hit. And so literally for a year, Dina and I were like listening to his sermons, and he started having like conferences every weekend.
Spirit schools.
Yes, so go ahead with your
every weekend. So he had all these spirit schools, and so I started, after she told me about this guy, and I'm like, that name sounds so familiar. And I went and looked. I'm like, oh yeah, I followed him on Facebook. But after that point, I had forgotten about him and had never really listened to anything else of his. And I remember there was stuff that would come up in my Facebook feed about him. And this is just being awful, but he looks kind of nerdy. He really does. And I was like, I wonder why I follow him, And I never really would listen after that, which is horrible. We shouldn't be that way. But I don't know. I just was like, I don't know. He doesn't look like
someone. He doesn't seem like someone who would actually be very...
He didn't have that charismatic personality, Yeah. And so, but I never did delete him. I just wasn't really listening to anything else. So I went back and listened. And then he actually has like So
Warrior School
he
of
has a
Ministry.
school
Warrior.
that's called the Warrior Notes.
Oh my gosh, that's true. I forgot about that.
It's called Warrior Notes.
Yeah.
And I have listened, and I've done several of his
We have learned
teachings.
so
I've learned
much.
so much from him. And he is part of he's under Jesse Duplantis' ministry.
Mm-hmm.
That's another story how he became part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesse has said many times, and other people have said, that that Kevin Zadok is a general
In
the body of Christ.
He truly is.
He is. And I was like, oh my goodness. Because my dream, I was going to be trained by a general about how to be a warrior.
Yeah.
And I really believe that was, God was showing me that he was going to bring this person into my life, which was Kevin Zadok.
Well, it's really interesting too.
To train me how to be a warrior.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is we're like, my grandpa was a church planner, so we've literally been around signs, wonders, miracles. I mean, my grandpa, his mother was raised from the dead. One of my aunts prayed for her neighbor. So we've literally been around this our whole life. This is all we've ever known. So, so for us to like literally come across like a minister or somebody that like we just like gling, 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 gling. It's very unusual.
Right.
Not to say that we know everything, because we do not, but we have been around some of the most amazing ministers our whole life, some of the most amazing teachers. We've literally, that's all we've ever known is the miracles, signs and wonders, all the things in our life. That's all we've ever known. So, I mean, this year was such a growing year for us. 2020 was really hard for a lot of people, but for us, it was like we were soaring in the spirit.
It was amazing because we listened to those spirit schools that he did every weekend, and it was just,
and we did go
amazing.
from just kind of being in a place of rest,
kind of complacent place.
Well, I would spend my weekends watching Hallmark movies. Like, it's like we love, my husband and I, we love to go to movies. We love, we were just, but like something about that year, we woke up, like spiritually to like praying in tongues. We were like praying in tongues all the time, just praying all the time.
Right.
And so I really feel like that was exactly what happened to us. We were like, it's not, we know there was a war going on. Like you can't live in this world without knowing there's a war going on. But we weren't really aware of the depth of the war until 2020. And it really awoke us out of complacency. And I don't think it was just us. I think the whole church was in a place of complacency.
Right.
And we had forgotten.
Had kind of been lulled to sleep. And we've had America. We've always had things so easy. We've been so blessed in our country.
Yeah.
That I don't think people realize that all
There's
of this
such an
stuff
evil
was going
fight.
on behind the scenes.
Whew, so much.
There was so much
Well,
going on.
just like your dream about those people sneaking in, we did not know, that these evil entities were coming in to take our country over. But that is exactly what we have witnessed this last few years. Right. So. Anyway, so I guess we're gonna end this one now. We don't want to keep it too long because it's just easier to watch them when they're a little bit shorter. And we'll do another one. I don't know when she'll get together because it took me 2 months to get this one because she got the COVID, and then we've been wedding planning, and it has been like one thing. And I have soccer games every Saturday, so we're literally doing this on a Saturday afternoon right after I got back from a soccer game. But we'll do it as soon as she can get it together again. We'll do several until she'll find her dreams and she'll share more. So anyway, we want to leave these for our kids. And anything else you want to share? Are you?
No, I think that was it.
Okay. Well, thank y'all all so much for watching, and we love you. God bless you.
Bye.